Number one, that people don't know that we believe in Jesus as one of the mightiest messengers of God. We believe in his miraculous birth, which many modern day Christians, including the bishops of the Anglican Church, they don't believe today. But we believe. We believe that Jesus was the Messiah, translated Christ. And we believe that he gave life back to the dead by God's permission, and he healed those born blind and the lepers by God's permission. And we believe that God took him up and he's coming back.
The story of Jesus' birth is narrated in vivid detail in the Quran. As in the Bible, an angel tells Mary she is pregnant despite being a virgin. But the story of what follows then changes completely. In the Quran's version, there's no stable, no manger, and above all, no Joseph.
There's no support structure, there's no loving husband, there's no nice midwife, there's no everybody with their bundle of joys and balloons and cuddly teddy bears coming along to say, oh, Mary, wonderful, She is alone.
In the Bible, Mary's role is limited to the passive mother of Christ. The Quran gives accounts of her ancestry, her birth, her childhood in the Temple of Solomon, and as mother of Jesus.
وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. يا مريم اقنتي لربك واسجدي واركعي مع الراكعين.
So Mary is treated in the Quran right from her birth, and the way she was born, and the way she was dedicated to God, and the way she was raised, and then the way she was being contacted by the angels, preparing her, giving her the news that something important is going to happen.
There is no Joseph in the story, in the Quranic story. She's alone, completely alone, with this burden, literally a physical burden.
Instead of being protected by Joseph and giving birth in a manger, Mary's labour takes place alone, under a date tree in the desert.
The discomfort of being heavily pregnant in the desert, alone, knowing that you're carrying this sort of scandalous, burden, if you like. And she's in the throes of labour. And there, in the pain, you see her humanity and you relate to her, and she's like, would that I be a thing undone? Would that I be dead before this?
But the verses continue. وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ. Behold, the angel said, O Mary, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُبَشِّرُكِ بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنْهُ. That God Almighty gives you glad tidings of a word from Him. Ismuhul Masih. His name will be the Messiah, translated Christ. Isa ibn Maryama, Jesus the son of Mary, wajihan fi dunya wal akhirah, held in honor in this world and in the hereafter. وَمِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ, and of the company of those nearest to God. What the Christian would say, sitting on the right hand of God. We say not physically, not geographically, but in stature, in spirituality, in the company of those nearest to God. وَيُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ, and he will speak to the people. فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَحْلًا, in childhood and in maturity. وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ, and he shall be of the company of the righteous. When this good news is given to Mary about the birth of a holy son, she says, قَالَتْ رَبِّ أَنَّ يَكُونُ لِي وَلَدٌ وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ. She said, oh my Lord, how shall I have a son when no man has touched me? The angel says in reply, قَالَ كَذَلِكَ اللَّهُ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. So even so, Allah creates what He wills. وَإِذَا قَضَى أَمْرًا, whenever He decrees a matter, فَإِنَّمَا يَقُولُ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ. Meaning chapter Mary. This chapter 19 is named in honor of the mother of Jesus Christ. Surah Maryam, chapter Mary. You know, in this whole vast volume, there is no chapter in the name of Muhammad's mother, or his wife, or his daughter. Can you imagine? But the chapter 19 is in honor of the name of the mother of Jesus. Surah Maryam, chapter 19. It tells us, verse 27, I'm starting, that after the birth of the child, these circumstances being peculiar, she had retired to a remote place in the east. There is no Joseph the carpenter in the Quran. You know Joseph the carpenter? There's no mention about Joseph the carpenter here. This is a miraculous birth, and it speaks about it miraculously. There is no genealogy of Jesus like we find in the New Testament, in the Gospel of St. Matthew and the Gospel of St. Luke. Between the two, they give this man, mighty messenger of God, 66 fathers and grandfathers. 66. A child that was born miraculously, they go out of the way to give him a genealogy. The Quran does not speak about any genealogy. It does not mention Joseph the carpenter or any other carpenter. So the circumstances of the conception being peculiar was immaculate. She retired to a remote place in the east, says the Quran, and after the birth of the child, she returns. Shamelessly, of course, carrying the little child infant in her arms. فَأَتَتْ بِهِ قَوْمَهَا تَحْمِلُهُ. So at length she brought the babe to her people, carrying him in her arms. قَالُوا, they said, Ya Maryamu, O Mary, لَقَدْ جِئْتِ شَيْئًا فَرِيًّا. So truly an amazing thing has thou brought. They are shocked, knowing full well that she was not married. Where did you bring this child from? The insinuating illegitimate child. Where did you get this child from? Shamelessly parading in the village. Ya ukhta Haruna, so O sister of Harun, coming such a noble ancestry of the children of Aaron, the brother of Moses, the Levites, the priestly class among the Jews. You come from such a priestly and noble family. Ya ukhta Haruna, ma kana abuki imra'a saw'in wa ma kanat ummuki baghiya. So your father was not a man of evil, nor thy mother a woman unchaste. Insinuating, where did you bring this illegitimate child from? What is she to do? Would they listen to her explanation? Would you listen to your daughter's explanation? If she tells you, says, Daddy, you know, I heard some voices and now this child was born, you'll believe her. Would you? They were in no mood to listen to such stories. What was she to do? She merely pointed to the babe. فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ, says the Quran. She merely pointed to the child and says, ask him. She knew that this was no ordinary child. Ask him. So they say, قَالُوا كَيْفَ نُكَلِّمُ مَنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَهْدِ سَبِيًّا. They say, how can we talk to one who's a child in the cradle, a baby, an infant? How can we talk to him? And by a miracle, he spoke from his mother's arms and defended his mother against an unbelieving audience. He says, قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ. So most certainly I am the servant of Allah. آتاني الكتاب. He has given me revelation. وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا. And he has made me a prophet. وَجَعَلَنِي مُبَارَكًا أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُ وَأَوْصَانِي بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ مَا دُمْتُ حَيًّا وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْنِي جَبَّارًا شَقِيًّا. He said, I am indeed a servant of God. He had given me revelation and made me a prophet. And he had made me blessed wheresoever I be. So, and he hath made enjoined on me prayer and charity as long as I live. And he has made me kind to my mother and not overbearing or miserable. He has made me kind to my mother and not overbearing or miserable. This is the first miracle that Jesus Christ performed according to this holy book of Islam.
The Christians refer to Jesus as the Word. And brothers and sisters, the more I study, the more I've come to the conclusion that there are many facts that Muslims and Christians especially agree upon, but where we differ is the interpretation. I'll give an example. Christians teach that Jesus is the Word. Muslims absolutely believe that Jesus is the Word of God. It's called Kalimatullah, the Word of God. And there's many evidences from Quran and from Sunnah. It's called in the Quran, Kalimatullah wa ruhu minhu. He's the Word of God and a spirit from Him. Now, what do you mean as a Muslim that Jesus is the Word of God? Since you say that Jesus didn't have a father, how did He come into existence? Allah said, Kun, be. And Jesus was. And Mary was pregnant. And she carried him. Now, Jesus was born from a virgin. Some might interpret it to mean that because he's God, therefore his birth must be a different way other than the regular birth or regular coming into existence. Interpretation. Now, there's a miracle in the Quran that the Quran mentions that you don't find in the Torah and you don't find in the Injil. And that is when Jesus was born, Jesus spoke from the cradle as a baby. And when Jesus was born, the people, they looked at Mary accusingly because they knew she didn't have a husband. How could you have this? And your father and your mother's not a prostitute. How could you have a baby without a man? And what did Mary do? She pointed to the baby Jesus. How can we speak to him? He's a baby. How can we speak to him? And Jesus spoke. And Jesus' first words were, Inni Abdullah. Not insignificant. I am the servant of God. I am the servant of God. I am the servant of God. Not the Son of God, not divine. I am the servant of God.
They think that we Muslims are the antichrists, the Dajjals, the enemies of Jesus. They do not know that in this holy Quran are enshrined the virtues of Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Jesus. And this mighty messenger of God, Jesus, his birth is described in 2 places in the Holy Quran. They don't know that we Muslims, we believe that Jesus was one of the mightiest messengers of God, that we believe in his miraculous birth, that we believe that he was the Masih, the Messiah, translated Christ, and we believe in his many miracles, including those of giving life to the dead by God's permission, and of healing those born blind and the lepers by God's permission. In my country, when I tell this to my fellow countrymen, the Christians, they are thinking that I'm trying to curry favor with them, trying to be nice to them, that if I scratch their back, they might scratch my back. If I can say a few good words about their Jesus, they in turn might say a few good words about our Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, that's far from the truth. The Holy Quran in it has enshrined what I'm telling you about. There is a chapter in the Quran called Surah Maryam, in honor of the name of the mother of Jesus Christ. Surah Maryam. It happens that in the Christian Bible, there is no such book. This Christian Bible I have in my hand, the Old and the New Testament put together, this particular one of the Roman Catholics, this one of the Protestant world has 66 books inside. 66. The Roman Catholic version has 73 books inside. 73 booklets put together creates the encyclopedia called the Bible. In those 73 books of the Roman Catholics and 66 of the Protestants, there is not a single book entitled Mary. You open the Quran and you find chapter Mary, Surah Maryam.